The Proposal Among Stars. The royal palace of Valoria floated above a sea of glowing clouds, its silver towers piercing the soft blue sky. Inside the grand hall, thousands of alien nobles waited, their eyes fixed on the center stage where a human stood alone. He was Elias Ward, the ambassador of Earth, a man of quiet eyes and humble clothes to many in that room. He was a curiosity, a creature from a violent world that the galaxy still feared. Golden light from the twin suns filtered through the crystal ceiling, casting rays that danced on his face. Around him stood lords of entire systems, their robes woven with starlight threads, their crowns glittering with energy gems. Elias did not bow to them, nor did he stand in arrogance. He stood still, steady, calm, as if waiting for a truth to reveal itself. A drumbeat echoed through the chamber, deep and solemn. The royal doors opened and the air itself seemed to shiver. Through the golden mist walked Princess Lysera of Valoria, her steps soft, her eyes shining like frozen galaxies. She was draped in a robe woven from starlight, her hair flowing like liquid silver. Her presence commanded silence, even from the most powerful beings present. Lysera approached Elias, and for a moment their eyes met. The entire court watched with held breath. Some looked at her with envy, some at him with disgust. They had heard rumors that the princess had chosen a human as her bondmate, a scandal that would shake the foundations of royal tradition. She lifted a small chain of platinum stars, the symbol of union between species, and spoke softly. "Elias Ward of Earth, do you accept this bond of trust, honor, and devotion between our worlds?" Her voice echoed like music in the hall. The crowd leaned forward, waiting for the human to kneel, for this was the moment they expected him to claim the greatest honor any mortal could receive. But Elias did not move. He looked at the chain in her hands, then back into her eyes. There was no fear there, no pride either, only something gentle and deep. His voice was steady when he spoke. "Your Highness, I am honored, but I cannot accept." The words fell like a thunderstrike. The nobles gasped, their ornate headpieces tilting in shock. A wave of whispers filled the air. Did he just refuse the princess? "Humans are mad!" "Blasphemy!" The sound of metal boots clanged as royal guards instinctively stepped closer. Lysera froze, her eyes wide. She had expected many things. Flattery, excitement, even greed, but not this, never this. The High Counselor of Valoria rose from his crystal seat, his voice like cracking ice. "Human, do you understand what you refuse? This bond would grant you power, wealth, immortality, and the records of the stars." Elias did not flinch. He bowed his head slightly and said, "Your offer is too great for a man like me. She is pure light, and I am only dust that walks beneath it." For a moment no one breathed. Even the machines that floated above paused their recording. The princess lowered the chain slowly, her hand trembling. "Do you insult me, human?" she whispered. He shook his head. "No, Your Highness. I honor you by stepping away." The silence was louder than a battlefield, and every eye in the room turned from the princess to the human who had just rejected the most beautiful being in the galaxy. Some saw foolishness, others saw something else, courage, or perhaps truth. As Elias turned to leave, a young noble shouted, "Coward! You fear royal blood!" The human stopped and looked back, his eyes sad but gentle. "I fear nothing, but I respect what I cannot possess." Then he walked away, the door closing behind him with a soft hum. When he was gone, Lysera stood alone beneath the light of 1,000 stars, the chain still in her hand for the first time in her life. She felt something that no royal had ever felt before, not rejection, but respect. And though the court buzzed with anger and mockery, her heart whispered a question she could not silence. Who is this human who refuses the galaxy and still stands taller than its kings? Outside the palace, beneath the open sky, Elias looked up at the stars. Their light reflected in his tired eyes. He whispered softly, "She's too pure for this galaxy," and walked into the dark streets, where destiny was already waiting for him, the whisper of scandal. The palace corridors were never silent, but that night they felt like tombs. The moment Elias refused the princess, the entire royal court exploded in noise and disbelief. Within hours, the scandal spread faster than light through every network in the empire. From the frozen colonies of Varni to the molten cities of Solkara, people whispered the same words. The human refused her. The idea itself was unthinkable. No one refused a royal. Not in 10,000 years in the royal chambers. Princess Lysera sat before her mirror, her reflection trembling under the soft blue light. Her attendant stood at a distance, afraid to speak. The chain of platinum stars, the bond she had offered, still lay on the table beside her. Untouched, she could not understand him. No man, no prince, no warrior had ever said no to her before. And yet the human's eyes had held no mockery, no greed, only sadness. Her chief advisor, Lord Therese, entered quietly, his robe dragging across the marble floor. "Your Highness, the council demands you forget this insult. They wish to erase his name from the archives. Humans are primitive, unpredictable, and unworthy of your regard." But Lysera turned to him, her voice calm but cold. "If he is unworthy, then why do his words still echo in every corner of my mind?" Down below, in the lower levels of the capital, Elias walked through narrow alleys where light barely reached. His Earth uniform was gone, replaced by a simple gray coat. Children of different alien species ran barefoot past him. Laughing, he smiled faintly. For them, there were no empires, no crowns, only hunger and survival. He reached into his bag and handed a small girl a piece of Earth chocolate. Her 4 eyes widened in wonder. "Sweet," she whispered, tasting something pure for the first time. At that same moment, the Galactic Tribunal gathered in the Hall of Judgment, shimmering in violet light. The Counselor of Order slammed his staff against the floor. "The human ambassador has dishonored Valoria's crown. He will answer before the tribunal." Their decision was immediate. Elias was summoned before dawn when the guards found him. He did not resist, he followed quietly, his hands steady, his eyes calm. Inside the tribunal, dozens of alien races filled the balconies, their whispers sharp and venomous. "That's the human who rejected our princess, a barbarian and fool, or maybe a Mount Brave." The chief arbiter leaned forward, his crystalline skin glowing faintly. "Elias, Ward of Earth, you stand accused of defiance against the royal bloodline of Valoria. What say you?" Elias bowed slightly. "I did not defy her, I only spoke truth." The arbiter's eyes narrowed. "Truth? You insulted our most sacred union ritual." Elias raised his head, his voice quiet but strong. "You call it sacred? Yet it is built on expectation, not freedom. The princess is pure, honest, and kind. She should not be bound by politics or pity." The hall went silent. The translators hesitated, unsure if they had heard him correctly. The arbiter leaned closer. "Are you saying the princess does not deserve you?" Elias shook his head slowly. "No, I am saying I do not deserve her." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The nobles shifted uncomfortably, unsure if the human was a fool or a philosopher. Outside, the story spread faster than before. In the spaceports, traders repeated his words. In taverns, mercenaries laughed about the human with too much heart. And in the monasteries of distant worlds, monks whispered that maybe the humans were not the savages they thought. Back in her chamber, Lysera replayed the tribunal recording. Again and again, each time she watched his face. Calm, honest, unshaken. A single question burned inside her mind. What kind of strength does a man need to walk away from power? That night she stood on her balcony, looking over the endless lights of her empire. The wind brushed her face, carrying faint sounds from the lower city. Laughter, music, life. She clenched her hand over her heart and whispered, "Tomorrow, I will find him." And somewhere in those dark streets, under the same starlit sky, Elias looked up, unaware that the princess he refused was already walking toward him. The princess's search for truth. The morning light of Valoria was soft, painted in shades of pink and gold. Yet inside the royal palace, the air was heavy with silence. Princess Lysera had made her decision before the suns even rose. She would not send soldiers. She would not send spies. She would go herself, to find the human who had turned down her hand and shaken the galaxy's pride. She stood before her mirror, no longer in her royal robe. Instead, she wore a simple cloak of gray, the kind worn by workers from the lower districts. She tied her silver hair back, covering it beneath a hood. Her reflection no longer looked like a princess, but a traveler seeking truth. Her personal guard tried to stop her. "Your Highness, if the council finds out..." She raised her hand and whispered, "They will not, and if they do, they will understand nothing." As the great palace gates opened, Lysera stepped into the bustling streets of the lower capital for the first time in her life. She had seen this place only from her window, but now she walked among its people. The air smelled of metal, steam, and life. Aliens of all kinds moved around her. Traders shouting, machines humming, children laughing in dirt. It was messy, chaotic, and beautiful. Hours passed before she found him. Elias was sitting beneath an old power tower, surrounded by alien children. He was fixing a small robotic arm for a young boy whose own had been damaged. His hands moved with care, and his voice was calm. "Try it now," he said. The boy blinked and flexed the arm. The small lights flickered, and the child gasped in joy. Elias smiled, handing the boy a small mechanical flower. "This one's for your sister," he said. Lysera watched from behind a pillar, confusion and warmth mixing inside her chest. This was the same man who had refused her. Yet here he was, helping strangers with no reward, no audience. She stepped closer, her voice trembling slightly. "You fix machines now, human?" Elias looked up, surprised, then smiled softly. "And you walk among your people, princess?" She hesitated, unsure whether to be angry or impressed. "Why are you here helping these people, when you could have been honored, protected, worshipped in the palace?" He leaned back, wiping grease from his hands. "Because I didn't come to this galaxy to be worshipped, I came to understand it." She frowned. "And what did you understand?" His gaze turned toward the children playing nearby. "That no matter the species, kindness is the one language everyone understands." Lysera felt something stir inside her, a feeling she couldn't name. "Do you pity me, human?" she asked quietly. Elias chuckled softly, shaking his head. "No, Your Highness. Pity is for those who don't try to change their world. You have power and heart. That's not something to pity." They stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of the street filling the space between them. She looked at him again, and for the first time, she noticed the tiredness in his eyes. Not weakness, but the kind born from carrying too much truth alone. "You said I was pure," she whispered. "Why?" He paused, then spoke gently. "Because in a galaxy where power decides everything, you looked at a human and saw something more than a tool or threat. That takes purity, princess." Her chest tightened. No one had ever spoken to her like this, not as royalty, but as a person. She turned her eyes away, hiding the shimmer that gathered in them. "My people think you insulted me," she said. "They believe you refused because you think humans are above us." Elias smiled faintly. "No, princess. I refuse because I think you're above all of us." Those words struck her harder than any insult could. She looked up at him, the noise of the city fading behind her. For a heartbeat she forgot who she was, who he was, and what their worlds demanded. Suddenly the silence was broken by a distant hum. Armored drones descending through the smog, bearing the crest of the Royal Council. Elias saw them first, his expression hardening. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "They'll arrest you for speaking to me." Lysera straightened, her voice calm. "Then they will have to arrest their future queen." Elias stepped closer. "You're risking everything, why?" She looked at him, her silver eyes burning with determination. "Because I need to know the truth about the man who refused me." Before he could answer, the drones landed, surrounding them in a circle of glowing energy shields. The leader spoke through a metallic voice. "Princess Lysera, you are ordered to return to the palace immediately. The human will be detained for questioning." Elias raised his hands, his voice steady. "I'll come quietly." But Lysera stepped forward. Standing between him and the soldiers, her voice was sharp as lightning. "No one touches him without my command." The guards hesitated, confusion flickering across their visors. For a moment, the entire world seemed to stop. A princess protecting a human, a symbol of rebellion against her own empire. And in that frozen instant, Elias whispered quietly, "You shouldn't have come for me." She looked back at him, her voice soft but firm. "And you shouldn't have changed me." The drones lowered their weapons, awaiting new orders from the palace. As they stood there in the middle of the glowing street, two souls from different worlds stared at each other, no longer bound by duty, but by understanding, and in that moment beneath the light of two suns, something began to shift in the galaxy. Not a war, not a rebellion, but something greater. The birth of respect, the Council's wrath. The Galactic Palace had never been so tense. The halls that once echoed with music now carried the sound of armored footsteps and hushed arguments. Word had spread across every system. The princess had defied the council, standing between a human and her own soldiers. To the nobles it was blasphemy. To the common people it was a miracle. Inside the Hall of Authority, the High Council gathered beneath the glowing sigil of the Empire. Their forms shimmered, some made of flesh, others of light, their voices merging into a storm of anger. She shamed her bloodline, one said. She protects a primitive, hissed another. The Emperor himself, silent until now, finally spoke. His tone heavy as stone. Bring them both here, the human will answer. And my daughter will remember her place. Lysera and Elias were brought into the great chamber, surrounded by guards whose armor reflected the storm outside. The princess walked with her head high, her cloak still dusty from the lower city. Elias followed, calm and unshaken, his hands bound in light cuffs, yet his eyes held no fear. The Emperor looked down from his throne of crystal fire. Elias, ward of earth, he said, you stand accused of corrupting the Princess of Valoria and defying royal command. What do you plead? Elias met his gaze and spoke simply. I plead truth, not guilt. A low murmur swept through the chamber. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. Truth? You call defiance truth? Elias's voice remained quiet but firm. If protecting honesty is defiance, then yes. Before anyone could speak again, Lysera stepped forward. Father, stop, she said. He has done nothing wrong, the counselors gasped. The Emperor turned his eyes to her, sharp and burning. You will not speak for him. Lysera lifted her chin. Then I will speak for myself. Her voice carried across the hall, clear and unshaking. You call him corrupt because he refused me. You call him dangerous because he showed me what our galaxy has forgotten. Humility. The room erupted in outrage. Nobles shouted. Counselors protested. The Emperor's voice boomed above them all. Enough! The sound silenced everything. Even the air seemed to hold still. You are a princess, he said coldly. You do not seek wisdom in the dirt. You command it. But Lysera didn't lower her eyes. Perhaps that is why our people no longer understand love. Honor or mercy? Elias stood silently, watching her risk everything. Every instinct told him to stay quiet. But when the guards moved closer, he stepped forward. If someone must be punished, punish me, he said. I refused her offer. Not her heart. The Emperor rose slowly, his voice dark. You think your words carry weight among the stars? Elias looked up, unblinking. No, but truth does. The chamber trembled slightly as the Emperor's power flared. The light around him rippled like fire. The guards raised their weapons, energy humming in the air. Lysera stepped in front of Elias again. Then you will strike me first, she said. Gasps echoed, even the guards hesitated. The Emperor stared at his daughter, fury warring with disbelief. You would stand against your own bloodline for this. Human? Her voice broke slightly, but her words did not. I would stand for what is right, even if it means standing alone, Elias whispered softly. You don't have to do this. She turned her head slightly, her eyes shimmering. I already have. The Emperor looked down, his expression unreadable. Finally, he lifted a hand. Remove him from my sight, he commanded. Send him back to his world and seal Earth's gates. The guards moved forward, but before they could touch him, Lysera raised her voice one last time. You can exile him, but his words will remain, she said, and one day, you will realize that this human showed more honor than any crown in this hall. Her words struck like lightning. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar. Elias looked at her, and though he was being taken away, his voice reached her one last time. Keep your heart free, princess. Don't let their walls dim your light. The doors closed behind him with a metallic thud, and for the first time, Lysera felt the true weight of the palace, heavy, suffocating, and cold. Outside, the sky of Valoria darkened. Storm clouds rolled across the twin suns, and in the distance, ships prepared to escort the human away. But among the people, whispers began to rise. Whispers of the princess who stood against her father, and the human who spoke truth to power. In the lower city, murals began to appear overnight, a figure of light and shadow standing together under a broken crown. The legend had begun, and the galaxy was listening. The answer that silenced the galaxy. The twin suns rose over Valoria, casting a pale light over the capital. The streets were quieter than usual, as if the entire planet was holding its breath. From the highest spires to the lowest districts, everyone waited for the same event, the public judgment of the human from Earth. Elias Ward stood at the center of the Grand Plaza, bound in silver energy chains. Millions watched from every corner of the galaxy through holographic screens. The crowd stretched beyond sight, aliens of every kind standing shoulder to shoulder. Even the skies above were filled with ships broadcasting the trial. At the far end of the plaza, the Emperor sat upon a golden platform, his daughter beside him, her face calm but pale. Behind them shimmered the banners of every allied world. Elias looked up at the banners and smiled faintly. "So many flags," he whispered. "And yet not one stands for truth." A horn sounded. The voice of the chief arbiter echoed across the plaza. "Elias, Ward of Earth, you stand accused of defying the royal decree, of corrupting the Princess of Valoria, and of dishonoring the unity of the Galactic throne. Do you have any final words before judgment is passed?" The cameras focused on him, a million voices murmured. Some called him fool, others hero. The wind brushed his face as he looked up at the Emperor, then at the princess, and finally at the crowd. His voice was calm, yet it carried across the plaza like thunder. "When I first came here, I was told this galaxy was a place of greatness, that its people had conquered war, famine, and fear," he said. "But what I found instead was pride without heart, power without mercy, and beauty without truth." The crowd fell silent. Even the drones stopped their motion. He turned to the Emperor, his tone respectful but steady. "You asked me why I refused your daughter's offer, why I did not take her hand and become a prince of stars," he said, pausing as the air grew still. "I refused, because she is too pure for a galaxy that has forgotten what purity means." The words struck like light through crystal, the crowd murmured. Trying to grasp what they had just heard, Elias continued, his eyes never leaving the Emperor's. "Your princess looked at me, a man from a violent, broken world, and saw a soul, not a soldier. She saw kindness where your courts saw weakness, hope where your empires saw chaos." He looked at Lysera now, his voice softening. "And I could not chain that heart to politics or ambition. Her soul deserves the sky, not a throne built on lies." The princess's eyes shimmered, her lips trembling. The Emperor's fists tightened, but he did not speak. Elias took a step forward, his chains glowing brighter as the guards moved closer. "You call me defiant," he said, "but I only refuse to take what I did not deserve. You call me arrogant, but I only spoke the truth your people forgot to hear." The plaza remained silent, the weight of his words sinking into every listener. "Humans are not gods," Elias continued. "We make mistakes, we fall, we fight, but we also learn. We remember what it means to feel, to bleed, to care. Maybe that is what your galaxy has lost." He looked up at the twin suns, their light reflecting in his eyes. "If my words offend you, then let them be my punishment. But if even one of you remembers them, then I have already won." The chief arbiter hesitated. Unsure how to proceed, the Emperor finally rose, his voice deep and cold. "You speak boldly for a man facing exile," he said. Elias smiled slightly. "Boldness is all a human has when truth is forbidden." A long silence followed. The Emperor looked at his daughter, her gaze unwavering for the first time. The ruler of Valoria saw not a child, but a woman shaped by courage. Slowly he turned back to Elias. "You refused a crown, yet you earned something far greater," he said quietly. "You earned the respect of a galaxy." The Emperor waved his hand. The chains vanished, the guards lowered their weapons. A soft gasp ran through the crowd. Lysera stepped forward, tears glimmering in her eyes. She whispered, "You changed everything." Elias, he looked at her, his voice calm. "No, princess, you did. You reminded them what it means to feel." The Emperor extended his hand toward Elias. "You are free to go, human of Earth," he declared. "But your name will never be forgotten." Elias bowed slightly. "Then may it remind your people that compassion is not weakness, but strength." As he turned to leave the plaza, the crowd began to bow. Not out of fear, but out of respect. The sound rolled like a wave through the air, thousands lowering their heads to honor a man who stood alone against an empire. Lysera watched him walk away, her heart heavy but filled with light. "Will I see you again?" she asked softly. He stopped at the edge of the platform and smiled. "When the stars remember how to love," he said. And then he walked into the rising sun, his figure fading into light. The galaxy would remember his words for generations. "She's too pure for this galaxy," they would whisper. And the human who said it reminded the stars of their soul,